is not, you're not allowed to have duplexes on R4 unless it's grandfathered in.
Oh, yeah.
So we have those 3 duplexes, and then we designed an ADU. Good to go. The back.
Good to go. All right. Well, we got the green light. So welcome everybody. I'm going to be the moderator for the panel today, the fix and flip panel today. My name is Denny Faircloth, and I'm the co-host and organizer with my partner, our MC of the event, Mr. Peter Pasternak, and as well as licensed realtor and investor myself. So I'm really excited about the discussion, which will primarily revolve around the current market. And that would be, are we in a crisis or is this a great opportunity? So I'm going to start by introducing our panelists, and you guys are in for a treat. So we're just going to start right here to my left with Mahlhar. You want to tell them about your company and what you do?
Sure.
Oh, we're going to have to pass the mic so y'all can hear it.
So my name is Mahlhar Baghat. I am a real estate investor here in the Atlanta metro market. I own properties in other cities as well. I've been investing in Atlanta now for almost 13 years, completed over 400 deals, and excited to share kind of what my experience has been. I don't necessarily consider myself a guru in any way, shape, or form. I just do this business, and it's been amazing for me and my family. So would love to share with you guys whatever questions you have.
Awesome. Well, you know, according to, who is it? Malcolm Gladwell, I think 10,000 hours makes you a master of your craft. So after 400 flips, you know, maybe 400 more and you can call yourself a guru. All right. Thanks, Mahlhar.
Thank you.
Lorraine?
So I'm Lorraine Beato. I'm actually a realtor with Palmer House Properties as well as an investor. And we've been investing in Atlanta since 2014, I believe it is. And we have flipped in multiple states and have done renovation in Europe. One of the things I've been trying to hunker down in 2020 with a book that I wrote, which is Flip the Switch, is to get real estate agents to understand that they need to invest in the product that they sell every single day and create wealth. Because I have a good friend who, you know, just had a birthday and she's trying to figure out what am I going to do. So Lorraine Beato with Palmer House.
Thank you, Lorraine. And speaking of, I'm pretty sure Alexis is up, and Lorraine, Mahlhar, myself, all investors, all licensed realtors. There's probably a hint in there somewhere. So maybe things to consider if you are an investor. So Alexis.
Yep, so I'm a licensed agent and investor as well. Started flipping properties in 2016. I flip to sell, flip to hold, and to hold for short-term rentals. So that's primarily what I do, and also sell real estate. And it helps out when I get ready to list my own properties that I'm flipping. And so I invest in Detroit, South Georgia, and here in Atlanta.
We could rename this panel "Why All Investors Should Be Realtors." Well, awesome. Well, I'm really excited about the discussion, and we don't necessarily have to go in order, but let's just start with like the overall question, which is, you know, are we currently in a crisis, or is this the opportunity of a lifetime?
Well, okay, I think that it's important to say that at any time, no matter how the market is, there's always opportunities, right? I feel like if you adjust your strategy, you can always find opportunities. And what I've done is, since COVID started, I stopped renovating for short-term rentals. Now I still have the ones that I have, and they are doing well. They've recovered. I'm at like 98% occupancy on all of them. But I shifted my focus onto flipping because we realized this is a seller's market. I've been able to pick up properties, renovate, do cosmetic renovations, hold it for less than 90 days, and sell it and make anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 in profit. And doing multiple of those in a 60-day period has been very beneficial for me. Now, do I want to then shift back to building for short-term rental? Of course I do. But right now, I feel like it's important that if you adjust your strategy, no matter if it's a crisis, you can be successful in whatever the market is doing currently.
So I would agree with Alexis in the fact that you've got to switch your strategies. You've got to always be thinking about what else can I do? How can I pivot? So I think fixing and flipping in Atlanta has gotten way crazy. Like, it's out of control. There's a lot of new investors in the market overpaying for properties. And to give you a perfect example, I just put a wholesale deal on the market. So it's a wholesale deal for a friend that they cleaned it up. We got an offer $20,000 above the list price, and we already thought our list price was aggressive. And same thing, multiple offers, and just people overpaying for deals and then getting into trouble because they can't get out of them, or then they're trying to cut corners and not doing as great of a rehab because they're watching their margin shrink. So I'm actually kind of sitting on the sidelines. We've pivoted a little bit, and we have started buying rentals subject to in the middle of COVID. So you just have to know how to tweak and just pivot just that little bit to then find a strategy that still fits within your criteria while you're still building and growing your wealth.
So yeah, I'm gonna echo similar to what both Lorraine and Alexis said. Yeah, there's opportunity in any market, right? I've been through a downturn. Actually, that's when I started renovating houses. 2008 is when I started, which everyone here probably knows was when the economy was collapsing, basically, 13 years or 12 years ago. And so essentially, kind of how I look at the market right now is there is a tremendous amount of opportunity if you're doing the right types of deals. Now, if you look at the city of Atlanta, we invest primarily inside the perimeter, which is inside the 285 loop. And those types of renovations are you're usually dealing with older homes. With older homes, what I think a lot of newer investors don't realize, a lot of the systems are old. There's a lot of wood rot, major damage that needs to be repaired properly, right? If you actually want to sell a property effectively in any market, you have to do the right things. And so if you're renovating houses inside the perimeter, you're usually going to spend a substantial amount of money. Not only are you going to spend a substantial amount of money, but it's going to take longer. The number one thing that I always hold very true to is the fact that you have no control over what the market is going to do. I don't care how big of an investor you are, hedge funds, whatever, you don't have control over what the market's going to do. So similar to where I know Alexis, for example, invests and renovates, she does a lot of outside the perimeter deals. So she tends to do a lot more cosmetic renovations. So for us, we've been looking at a lot more cosmetic renovations because we can be in and out of them in 30, 60, 90 days versus taking on a major construction project, which could end up taking us 4, 6, 9 months or more, right? So, and that this goes back to the point that I just made, which is we can't control the market. So if I'm going to hold a property, I want to hold it if it's a fix and flip for as little time as I can, get in and get out. Because right now, the way I look at the market is we're a ship that's going into a storm, right? I don't know when the storm's going to come. I don't know how it's going to play out. I just know that I'm riding a ship right now and I'm riding into a storm. So I'm getting in and out of properties very quickly.
Well, first I'd like to just maybe turn it over to everybody that's watching virtually. I know it can, you can feel like disconnected if you're on a computer and everyone's sitting in the room. So feel free to drop in the chat, like if you have a question, you can go ahead and ask us that. Also, if you have an opinion, like, do you think we're in the middle of a crisis or do you think this is a major opportunity? And what I heard, which was I didn't expect, everyone to kind of have their opinions in alignment. So I'm going to try to throw a napalm bomb in there. It sounded like we all agree that right now the market's hot, that there's low inventory, sellers can name their price and people are going to outbid that. But we also all agree that we're in the eye of a storm and that, the end is near.
Yeah.
So shorter days on market, cosmetic renovations, like wholeheartedly, what do you think is the time frame with tens of millions of people unemployed? Right now, we've got some government like unemployment, moratorium on evictions. We've got companies doing layoffs. We got all that stuff kind of going on. What do y'all think the time frame is?
Yeah, so, I'll just go.
Just go.
Good. Go for it.
He analyzes everything, so he knows.
Yeah, I'm kind of ADD like that, or not ADD, like. extra.
And I could throw an extra bomb in there, like, does it matter what market you're in? Like Atlanta versus LA versus Topeka, Kansas.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, I'll answer the second question first, which is, does that apply to every market? I don't believe so, all right? What I do believe is this. There's a fundamental idea that I have, which is what drives growth, population growth for any city, right, is jobs. And I believe in the South. That's why I'm originally from New York. I moved my family, my business down here about 6 or 7 years ago because I believe in the South. If you look at net migration statistics, which I do very closely, a lot of the northern cities, especially over the Northeast, Chicago, Midwest, northern cities, a lot of the migrations moving to the South. That's why you have some of the hottest markets around the country are, Dallas, Atlanta, you got Charlotte and Phoenix, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of the migrations moving south. Similarly, the cost of living is significantly lower. I mean, call a spade a spade. When people aren't making money, they need their dollar to stretch further. So they're gonna move further south, right? And so that's the first thing that I would say. I forgot the first question.
Just what do you think the timeline is? Like, do we have
Yeah.
3 months, 6 months, 2 years?
So as far as the timeline is concerned, I think it's anyone's guess. What I was expecting is after, originally all the pandemic, CARES Act and all that stuff was supposed to expire at the end of July. However, there was an executive order put in place that extended it out until December. So all I believe, and me and Lorraine were actually having this conversation a little bit earlier, is all I believe that's happening is that the government and the government subsidies are kicking the ball down the road, right? So they're just pushing the inevitable essentially down the road. So I expect that, we're going to potentially start seeing rumblings in the market in Q1 and Q2 of next year. And then it's anyone's guess, because what's different from 2008 to now is that inventory is still substantially low right now. But when you look at what was happening in 2006, 7, and 8, inventory was significantly higher. We were in a buyer's market when the economy crashed. Right now, we're in a seller's market. So, basic supply and demand theory suggests that if there's a lot more people that want a product than there is available supply, then you're obviously going to be able to prop up prices. So, that's a long-winded answer, but I expect that probably once these 12-month forbearances, et cetera, begin to expire, you're going to start seeing a lot more trouble in the market. And one of the key areas that I think you'll see some of the most trouble is accidental landlords, what I call them, which is those people that have maybe 1 or 2 properties and, it was their primary residence and then they moved out. These people, if their tenant loses a job, they don't have a job. Now, all of a sudden, they can't afford 2 or 3 mortgages. They're going to start getting in trouble first, I think.
So I'll take out my crystal ball, right? If we all only knew when we could time the market, that would be awesome. Like Mahlhar says, we were talking about this earlier, and I agree with a lot of what he says. The other difference, in my opinion, and I really think it'll be market specific, is yes, we are in the South, a lot of people migrating to the South, but also because prices have risen so much, I don't think we'll see the amount of short sales and foreclosures because a lot of people now have equity. I also think that there are a lot of investors now, thanks to the HGTVs of the world and RIAs and everything else, there's a lot of investors looking for pre-foreclosure. So the fact of those properties actually getting to the steps, I don't think we'll see them. So I think that plays into, again, the shortage of inventory. We've got people that are looking for houses. We've got investors looking for, pre-foreclosures. I don't think we'll see the onslaught that we saw. And, again, interest rates are an all-time low. Atlanta's still booming. We're still a big, tech area with a lot of companies and a lot of people moving in. So, we'll see. I agree. I think Q1 we'll start to see. I also think it depends on what's going to happen with all of those forbearances. There are some people that are saying, oh, they're just going to attack the payments on the backside. But if you really think about it, if they're doing that, they're changing the terms of the mortgage note. You can't just go at it. So will they require them to do loan modifications, and then will they qualify? Because if they lost their job, now they probably don't have the income. I mean, that's just a whole nother ball of wax that, you know, just remains to be seen. I'm not quite sure what's gonna happen, but I've been watching those trends as well.
So I totally agree with what they're saying, and I'll say this, there's no need for me to repeat that, right? We don't know, we just don't know, but we know it's coming. What can you do as somebody who wants to invest, right? If you want to get into real estate, you've never got started, what you can do is start to prepare for what we think is coming ahead. Even me as, I guess, a seasoned investor, I don't know, as a seasoned investor, I'm still preparing for what might be happening. So what am I doing? I'm taking some of my properties that are not performing as well as far as my rental income, and I'm liquidating them. And I'm getting very heavy on the liquid side, so that if it does come, I'm prepared to buy multiple properties, large amounts of properties with cash. And so I think that's anything. If you're looking to get started, you're ready to get started, start preparing for that now. And if you say, I get tons of DMs, people say, I've done put in all these offers, I just can't get a property, it's too competitive, it's so many people are overpaying. Well, don't pay that, and just prepare and wait for the time when you can actually, because it's gonna be eating season soon, right? So prepare for it.
I would think that most of us would probably share that frustration. I know I do, because just to echo Lorraine from earlier, unfortunately, fortunately, there's a lot of people who want to be real estate investors. Unfortunately, if they don't know what they're doing, they don't stick to their numbers or understand them completely, you know, you're fighting with the media calls it the dumb money, right? Because they overpay for properties. They don't understand what it's actually going to cost to get it to market. They don't understand all their numbers. So I personally believe we are in a crisis, and dumb money is the biggest contributor to the crisis. But I do think that will lead to your point, Alexis, probably the biggest opportunity we'll ever have in our lifetime, because I'm not excited about anyone getting hurt, but people are going to get hurt. And I am excited about the opportunity on the other side of that. So, you know, if you've never done a deal, this is probably kind of scary times to jump into the water. If you have, you should be loading up and stockpiling your cash. But if someone is just kind of like on the fence, do I do it now? Do I wait? Like, what would you say?
I'll go real quick because I just. So if you're on the fence and you're like, what do I do? I found a great deal. I just want to go ahead and get into it. I'll tell you right now what I tell people who come to my classes. Now is not the time for a new investor to try to do a full renovation. It is not the time.
Wow.
This is not the time for that. It's for you to come in, get your feet wet, learn the business, do a cosmetic. Listen, you can go put some nice lights, some new paint, a couple of
Agreeable
shingles.
gray.
Yes, the best color in the world, and it's gonna sell. But now is not the time, especially with the way lumber costs are. I just did a lumber package that I thought was gonna be $24,000, and it was $46,000. So with the way that lumber costs, the delays on products, you can't get windows for 8 weeks to 12 weeks now. You can't get appliances either. So all of these factors.
Houses need appliances?
If you want to sell it. Okay. But with all these factors, and maybe you don't know, unless you're partnering with somebody who's experienced, I say right now is not the time to do a full renovation. Get in, do something cosmetic, get your feet wet, and get a little bit more knowledge under your belt. Yeah,
Mahlhar, you even touched on it earlier. If you're doing full renovations in town and you're trying to get permits, I mean, what's happened to the permitting times?
It's been a challenge.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, I agree with Alexis. Actually, last night I had a mentee text me at 11:30 last night. She found a deal, and she's like, "Oh, I think it's listed with Palmer House, and I've got my pre-approval ready to go." And I pulled it up real quick. I didn't respond, and I just looked at the pictures, and I looked at the price, and I looked at the ARV that the agent put in the private comments.
Mm-hmm.
And my response to her this morning was, "I'm headed to Think Realty. Check your comps, and I can tell you just from the pictures, I mean, there's part of the wall missing.
Right.
She's never flipped a house. And I said, I can tell you just from the pictures, you're looking at probably 80 grand. That is not something I would recommend anybody do. Like Alexis said, find someone that you trust, find a coach, find a mentor, joint venture with someone. If you think you really have a really good deal, there's plenty of us around that can help you get through it because, it's about the deal. The lumber costs are up. You also have holding costs. Like if you have hard money and you're holding that can eat all of your profit. And if you're not prepared for that, if you don't have the cash reserves yourself, then you're going to be in big trouble. And then we're going to be going to the hard money lender saying, what deals do you have that we can buy?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I may just briefly comment on that. So, up until I'd say about 4 or 5 years ago, I used to call myself a rehabber. That's how I put myself out into the marketplace. I'm a rehabber, I'm a builder, because we used to build houses as well. We still do. And then I began to shift my conversation with myself, largely because I got my butt whooped a little bit on several projects that we were working on, high-end projects. And so when I shifted the conversation within myself, I stopped calling myself a rehabber and I began to call myself an investor. And that's really what it is. Alexis, you touched on it briefly, and Lorraine, if not directly, indirectly, what you basically said is do what the market offers you, right? So if you're just fixing and flipping properties and that's your only revenue stream as a real estate investor, there's going to be hard times coming because when you can't flip properties, if you don't have another exit strategy, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So for us, we have short-term rentals, long-term rentals. We do buy and hold, but we also do wholesaling and fix and flip. And then we do lending as well. So we kind of have our hand in a lot of different buckets. So when it comes to a deal, we can look at a deal and exercise potentially 5, 7, 10 different exit strategies on it. So if exit strategy 1 is not best suited for this property, now maybe I can go ahead and convert it into a short-term rental or something like that. So put on your investor hat, become, as the lady said, find people in your marketplace that can guide you appropriately so that you can exercise the best exit strategy.
Yeah, so another way of saying that is simply you have multiple solutions to a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
So the more solutions you have, the more problems you can solve, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. So Peter, you had a question, Mr. Fix and Flip out there?
We're going to ask, but actually I want to ask Alexis and Mahlhar, who were talking about flipping, and it goes to the permitting question. So when you talked about your timeline, cosmetics, trying to get in and out in 60 days, I'm just curious because the experience I've had is it's hard to get permits. How are you able to get in 60 or 90 days, or how are you adjusting your projections? Because as investors, we all know the thing that can kill your deal more than anything is your holding cost.
Yeah.
So how have you taken that into the equation?
So for those of you online, I just want to make sure everybody could hear. Peter was asking how Alexis has potentially shifted her timelines or her process to account for extended permitting if she's doing quicker cosmetic renovations.
Yeah, easy. I don't do any deals that need a permit. Simple as that. If it needs a permit, I don't even want to see it. Like, don't even send it to me. I'm not doing nothing that needs a permit. I'm strictly doing fully cosmetic deals, right? So I'm going in literally the day that I close on it. That's my countdown day. And my target is 45 days to get it back on the market. So we got to be moving. So even if it consists of doing any like cleaning out, removing floors, I'm not touching any walls. I'm not changing any electrical or plumbing. So I'm not doing anything that needs a permit. We're literally just going in and redoing cosmetic things. New cabinets, new tile, new vanities, new flooring, paint, exterior paint, landscaping, and we're getting out of the property. And then putting it back on the market, hopefully to get a deal, get someone under contract in the next, well, now it's 48 hours pretty much. I mean, I put a property up and I got 7 offers in 24 hours. So 48 hours, then close within 30 days. And so we're in and out in 90 days.
So regarding permitting in town Atlanta, which is where we do a lot of our deals, it's still really tough. And especially before the city had figured out an online way of adjusting to get permits through, it was extremely tough because they didn't know what they were doing. And so it became challenging to figure out how to get a permit. So what we do tend to do is we have to have the stomach to hold, right, for an extended period of time.
Can you, just for the context, give people kind of what it looked like before COVID?
Yeah.
So you can tell them the after part?
Sure. So before COVID, it was still a little bit challenging, to say the least, simply because in the city of Atlanta, and I'm talking specifically about the city of Atlanta, it's not, one department doesn't always talk to the other department, and as a result, one department will want one thing, you adjust the plans, and then it's broken for the second department, right? And so one hand didn't talk to the other. However, with that said, if you had your ducks in a row, you could potentially get permits within 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks, as long as you were consistently following up with the plan reviewers, et cetera, et cetera. And that also entailed sometimes going in with coffee and donuts, right?
Yeah. But that's a month or two on a timeline just for permits.
Yeah, exactly. A month or two on the timeline for permits. These days, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, although the process has become a lot more streamlined because they've figured out an online way. I know that sometimes permits will still take about 2 to 3 months, depending on how extensive the project is. So what we tend to look at, even if we're doing these major renovations, one of the big things that we look at is how do we make sure that we don't change the elevation of the house? When we say elevation, we say what the house looks like from the front and the sides and the back. So if we keep the windows and doors where they're supposed to be, now we're just doing an interior renovation, and those permits we can usually get within a week or two. And sometimes before COVID, they used to be same day, right? So we kind of figured out how to play with that, play with the floor plan so we could keep the windows and the doors in the same place. So that's kind of what we do inside the perimeter. When we do renovations outside the perimeter, like Alexis, we generally, the suburbs are a lot easier in their permitting process. And also, if you're doing cosmetic type of renovations, you know, new cabinets and granite and things like that, fixtures, etc., usually you don't need permits, depending on the jurisdiction.
Awesome. Lorraine, anything to add?
That's why I don't like doing really big projects, because I like my timeline smaller, and I'm not like Alexis. I try to really get into projects that don't need permits. I haven't done anything inside the city of Atlanta in
Gotcha.
a very long time for that reason.
Yeah, the longer the timeline, the more the market risk.
I'll say too. What I have been doing is, before COVID, I was flipping in East Point. Now, East Point, they only like 3 people, and thank God I'm one of them.
All right.
They only like 3 people.
Just made a mental note of
Just
that.
so you know, I got a little pool in East Point, just a tiny bit, just because I blast them on social media, and then they kind of started to like me. So, okay, so then we'll leave them. But their inspectors, they do not have enough staff to cover all their inspections. So what I started doing in East Point was, you know, they will allow you to get an independent inspector. Now, is that another cost? Yes, but cost versus time that I was losing, I could bring in an independent inspector, have them inspect, and then submit their report to the inspectors, and they'll turn that around in 24 hours. And so I was able to do that on some projects, and it helped to increase my timeline, because I would lose a week and a half just waiting on inspectors to come out to be able to move on to the next phase. So those are some things you'll learn as you go. You'll figure out, you know, how can I save money and time and move, because time is money. So the faster I can move, the less money it's going to cost me, and that increases my profit. So.
Awesome. We have anything online? Any questions?
No questions yet, but somebody says as long as they can't be seen from the road, you don't have to have a permit.
Okay. All right. All right. So if you're watching online and you didn't hear that, one of the comments online was that if you can't see it from the road, you don't need a permit.
Can I address that, please?
With a winky face. So
With a winky face. Be very careful, because buyers have gotten smarter. And inspectors are now looking for permits on rehab jobs.
Mm.
And if you don't have one, that could potentially blow up your entire deal. And, yeah, just err on the side of caution, just do the right thing.
I had a deal last year. A California investor had bought a home through another realtor here in town, Atlanta, and invested, I think, like $90,000 in renovations, and was having some difficulty, and somehow stumbled across me to find out that they had pulled no permits. And we tried our best, and end result had to rip out every single thing in the house. So I would suggest you get permits, but that's just my opinion. Any of you fans of no permits up there?
I'll give a real life story.
Go for it.
I'll give a real life. This cost me $40,000. $40,000. East Point. My first house in East Point. First house in East Point. Did not pull the permit. I was very greedy, just letting the contractor do what they said they could get it done. Then guess what I did? We're all done. It looks great too. It's amazing. Like, I'm so happy. People were driving around wanting to buy it. I go to turn the electric on. They say, you can't turn on the electric. This house hadn't had electric in a whole year. We have to send out an inspector. Inspector said, where's your permit? Permit? Did I need one? He said, well, you're gonna need one now. So you better find a contractor that's licensed and start opening these walls back up. So $40,000 later, $40,000. I mean, I thought I hit a home run on this property. No, I didn't. I made $8,000. Whole profit gone. So that's it. I pull permits. If I need a permit, I pull it. It's not that serious to not do it. And you know, it holds your subs accountable when you don't know, because you don't know electrical and you don't know plumbing. It holds them to a standard of
Right.
doing things the right way, because mine are not getting paid until you pass the inspection. So it holds them accountable. So pull your permits. Don't try to get around it.
I would second that. Speaking of, again, what year did you start?
Oh, wait.
8,
14.
14,
2016.
16. Okay, so this should be interesting. You're probably the closest to the last crash. We wake up 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now. 1 out of 5 people don't have a job. There's a boatload of inventory. Life's hard. Millennials are buried in student loans. Gen Z have now watched this happen twice, and they're not really excited about, buying houses. All the baby boomers are dying left and right. So you have more. Well, hey, like I'm just trying to paint a picture here. Statistically, I want y'all to understand that millennials, while it's a larger overall population than baby boomers, which y'all need to picture it this way. If there's 100 million people and then 50 million are born, that's a 50% increase. Well, if there's 300 million people and 60 million people are born, it's not the same impact. So we literally have more people retiring and dying right now than we do buying. So demographics are not our friend in the trend for the next 20 years. You statistically have to have 2.4 babies to replace 2 people. The birth rate in the United States is 1.8. So supply and demand says that the more demand there is, the more prices go up. Well, you have to have people to buy potato chips and houses. So less people, less demand. So that was economics 101. We wake up a year from now and the stuff has hit the fan. Like, what's your strategy? What's the market look like? You excited? You terrified?
I'm very excited. Yeah, to be honest, 08, literally we would place ridiculous offers on properties on the MLS. We would cherry pick properties and say, we'll take that one and that one. We don't like that one. We'll take that one, right? And I used to put offers, I used to run my numbers, come up with a number. Let's say the offer was $30,000 and that would be my max offer. And then I'd think about, okay, well, I don't want to start at my max. So maybe I'll place an offer for 20. you know? And then I'd go back into my mind and say, well, that's not embarrassing enough. So let me go to embarrassment level, right? And I'd place an offer of like 8. And I've literally bought houses for $8,000, right? Because they would take my first offer. And I was like, shoot, I 8,000 was too much, right? Because I don't want them to
Didn't
accept
shoot long
it.
enough.
Yeah,
It wasn't
level
embarrassingly enough.
yeah, exactly. So my point is, if a time like that does come, you know, I always think about this Warren Buffett quote, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but I understand the concept of it. When people are fearful, become greedy. When people are greedy, become fearful. And what that essentially means is when people are scared, that's opportunity, right? When people are excited about the market, which is right now, that's when you have to step back and say, am I listening to the fundamentals, or am I getting caught up in all the hype? And I think there's a lot of people getting caught up in the hype right now. And the properties that I'm seeing at the prices that we're seeing them at, and it's not just me, other experienced investors in this market, Lorraine, Alexis, other people that I've spoken to are all constantly telling me, I can't find quality deals. We can find quote unquote deals, or what people think are deals, right? Which is a property, they put it under contract and you know, maybe it's 50 grand under what it should sell for fixed up, but that's not really what it's worth. It's probably worth another 50 or 100 grand less because it's going to require $75,000 or $100,000 of work. So my point that I'm trying to make is, right now, people are greedy, right? And that's when I'm fearful. And as a result, I've stepped back, and I would rather be conservative and wrong versus overly aggressive and wrong and then without a business in 12 months, right? So that's my position.
I don't know what the official numbers are, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1 out of 10 homes is in forbearance, which means they're not paying their mortgage. So I know that the prices are up, but I read somewhere, and I don't know if y'all have seen this, but like supposedly 30% of mortgages are still underwater, which like, I don't even know how that's possible with the way prices are going. But 52% of all young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 live with their parents. That went up 10% since March. So if that, yeah, go for it.
So if you guys look at over the last 10 years or 12 years, the biggest companies that have come up globally are sharing economy companies, right? Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, like these companies are all about sharing economy. If the market takes a hit, when the market takes a hit, right? What's going to happen is more and more people, if they can't afford a $1,500 rent, guess what? They'll find a 4-bedroom house and shack up together and afford a $2,000 rent, but they're going to have 3 people paying that, right? So that's potentially what could happen, and therefore would increase supply of homes, right? So with that said, real estate fixing and flipping, the way I see it, is a way for you to get capital. But how you make money in real estate is holding real estate. That's where we've made the most wealth over the last 13 years. Holding properties, every time I look at that, that's where I've built my net worth. It's not fixing and flipping houses, right? And all the social media superstars that you guys see in front of Lamborghinis, like frankly, I mean, like my question would be, you know, maybe they flipped houses and bought the Lamborghini, but I want to see the real estate portfolio. Like, how much equity do you have? Because that's what's going to get you past any storm. Right now, for me, worst case scenario, if my business stopped flipping houses, I could just go to a bank and say, let me refinance this house real quick and go pull 200 grand out so I can go live on it for the next 2, 3, 4 years, however long I want, right? So that's,
and still have the tenant pay the mortgage.
exactly, right? So that's kind of how I look at the market.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And it's funny because right now I have 3 24 to 26-year-old buyer clients, and they all want to house hack because they're paying $1,700, $1,800 a month for a 1-bedroom in Atlanta. 2 of them have used their student loans to pay for rent, And that's just another disaster.
Mhm.
And so they've all kind of gotten to this, hey, I want a house hack. Can I find a duplex or can I do this? And I'm actually trying to help my daughter find a house. And then her friends that use student loans went and re-upped their lease. But that was the plan was, we found a 4-bedroom, like she can live for free. They can live in a house with a yard and a kitchen and everything else and have space and a place to park their cars, not on the street in the city of Atlanta, for half. And so that would put everybody ahead. So yeah, I completely agree. I think we're gonna see, definitely more of that depending on what comes down the road. And yeah, there's a lot of dry powder out there. And right now, most of the seasoned investors I know, they're holding on to their capital because I think we're gonna see the biggest transfer of wealth come up in the next year or so.
Yeah, and if that happens, to your point, if 2 or 3 people are going in on one house, well, I mean, instead of buying 3 houses, that means more inventory, that means lower prices. But as I see it, there's a couple of my clients are the same way. They're like, in their 20s and they're combining resources to buy a house. So they're buying the house together. But if you're an aspiring investor and you don't have, like I've got a wife with 4 kids under the age of 7. So we're not like house hacking, you know what I mean? I'm not bringing in some roommates, some other families of 4, but if you're younger and single or married without kids, like this is a great way to get started in real estate is don't go buy your starter 1 or 2 bedroom, go get you one of those empty McMansions that has 6 bedrooms and start, get you some tenants. So I think that, and another way to house hack, by the way, multi-generational housing is literally exploding. My dad died when he was 53. My mother, is in her late 60s now. Like she would jump at the opportunity if I had room for her to move in. And you've got kids with kids all in the same place. I think those 2 opportunities are really are going to be great on the other side of this myself.
Yeah, I always tell anybody who asks me how to get started, if you haven't used your FHA loan, go buy a home with the 3.5% down and if you're single or even just single with a child or even just a married couple, find something that has a finished basement with a private entry. You live in the basement, have the people live on the top and pay your mortgage and pocket that money. Now you have instant, you go buy something else in the next 2 years, you have your first property back. Then you rent out that basement unit. Now you got 2 tenants. It's the easiest way to go. And you got into it and you got started with 3.5% of whatever you pay.
Yeah.
I just did that for a friend of mine and she rents out the top to students, each room, and she pockets $600 more than her mortgage. I mean, she's living great. And she had a renovated basement unit. So it's like really nice, actually.
I think what y'all have heard is there's a lot of uncertainty, but there's also a lot of opportunity. And we only have maybe 2 or 3 minutes left. So you had a question. I want to make sure we honor that and if there's any other questions online. Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, I do have it. That's a great idea. I did that with the second property I'm in now. Renovated the basement. It's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And I have 2 men older than me that pay my mortgage. But
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So my question is, as an investor looking for tradesmen, so I would like everyone to ask, but Alexis, you mentioned this. When you're looking for a tradesman, carpenter, all the electrician and all that, what's the interview process to ensure that they do pull the permits, they pass the inspection, and then you ultimately have a great finished product?
Sure. So what you're going to do is, if you're not experienced at all, you're going to need to get a general contracting building license. So you're going to have to get a general contractor that can pull a license for you. Then your tradespeople will pull under your home building permit. Okay, so then they'll go in and say, either your general contractor's plumber or you bring your own plumber. I bring all my own people in, but they'll go pull under them, right? And so then you'll have the process of, depending on how big of a renovation, if you're doing a full reno, they'll do rough and they have to pass rough. That's when the walls are all still open. That's gonna have to be inspected. So you would have to have your rough for your plumbing, your electric, and your HVAC. Then you can close your walls up. Then that's when you put the nice fixtures in and everything. And then they have a final permit inspection. right? So I'm only giving part of the money. You're only getting 60% when you pass rough inspection. You get the other 40 when you finish out the house.
Yeah, number one way you can lose money hiring contractors, pay them too much too fast.
Yep. So right now I'm framing a house. It's my own personal residence. I actually been living in my parents' basement for 3 years. That's how I went from having only 3 rental properties to 16 rental properties, like complete sacrifice. So you really can do it, right? But now I'm building my house. My framers, they get paid as they do things, right? So the floors went down, we're putting walls up. Okay, you're 25% done. You're gonna get 25% of this payment. I'm not gonna pay you anything. And then really for framing, they won't get any more until after framing inspection, so.
If you have a sub that needs more money than they've done in work and they can't float a little bit of the job themselves, you don't want to hire them because they're going to be robbing Peter to pay Paul anyway.
Yeah.
Guys, any other on her question, tips on hiring contractors?
Yeah, and I mean, you'll know because when they pull the permit, you have to have it posted. So you'll physically see it. It'll have to be there. Yeah, I don't know, like I said, I don't do big ginormous like demo renovations.
Yeah,
It's
so-
not my wheelhouse.
For us, we used to have trouble with contractors, so if you can't beat them, join them, right? And that's
True.
essentially what we did. My wife is a licensed general contractor now in the state of Georgia, Jasmine Design Build. You guys can follow her on Instagram. She provides a ton of tips and she actually walks the houses with videos and all that. So you can hit her up. But one thing I want to add to what Alexis said is the interview process is one thing. I could tell you something, and if I'm a great spokesperson, you're gonna hire me, right? The other thing that I see a lot of investors don't do is they don't go around and actually check what they did, right? So I've known of investors who have paid out literally $60, $70, $100,000 and none of their inspections are passed on their jobs, right? So it's pretty simple. Find out how you can log in online to that jurisdiction or make a phone call and say, hey, this guy's asking me for plumbing. Did we pass the plumbing inspection, right? And you can find out if the plumbing inspection has passed. I know of literally other investors who've paid out an entire project and no inspections have passed. And then what happened to Alexis on her first deal has to happen, which is rip everything out again so that you can actually pass the inspection.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's exactly what happened to that California investor. They kept saying I passed and he just never checked and then they were done and none done. So we're out of time, but a big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you guys. And I would encourage you all to reach out to them on the Think Realty app and on their social media channels as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Group picture.
Thank you.
Let's do it. Dee, will you take a group picture for us?
That's my umbrella.
I always like to dress with pockets.